Imagine this, a hero so legendary that his name alone could electrify an entire generation. A warrior whose every transformation became history. The Green Ranger, the White Ranger, the Red Zeo Ranger, the Red Turbo Ranger, the Black Dino Ranger. One man, 5 colors. A legacy that transcended fiction. But here's the truth that still breaks hearts to this day. Jason David Frank, the man behind the helmet, passed away in 2022. His death sent shockwaves through the Power Rangers fandom, a community that had grown up watching him fight, lead, and inspire. The world lost more than an actor that day. It lost the spirit of a hero who never stopped believing in the power of transformation, both on screen and in life, and yet, even after he's gone, his legacy refuses to fade. Every fan who ever shouted, "It's Morphin' time!" still carries a piece of Tommy Oliver in them. That spark of courage, redemption, and hope. So before we begin this journey, take a moment. If Jason David Frank ever inspired you, if Tommy Oliver ever made you believe in second chances, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop A in the comments to keep his legacy alive. Because today, we're not just talking about Power Rangers. We're remembering the man who became every color. Power Rangers wasn't just a kids' show in the 90s. It was a cultural explosion. TV screens, toy stores, lunchboxes. It was everywhere. But in the center of all that chaos stood Tommy Oliver, a character who embodied something far deeper than spandex and special effects. He showed millions of kids that even when you're lost, you can find your way back. That even when darkness controls you, you can still choose the light. And that story began with one of the most unforgettable arcs in television history. Green with Evil. When Tommy first appeared, he wasn't the hero. He was the threat. A warrior under Rita Repulsa's spell, fighting against the very heroes fans loved. But something about him was different. Even under mind control, he had presence. That quiet fire, that unspoken strength. He wasn't just another villain of the week. He was the story. And when he finally broke free from darkness, everything changed. Tommy Oliver didn't just join the Power Rangers. He redefined them. His redemption wasn't scripted just for TV. It became a message, one that stuck with an entire generation. You can fall, you can fail, but you can still rise again. That's why his transformation into the White Ranger hit so hard. It wasn't just a new costume. It was rebirth. A second chance. And when he stepped forward as the new leader, holding the talking sword Saba, fans didn't just see a hero. They saw hope. But what most people never realized is that every color Tommy wore carried a secret meaning. And behind every transformation was a creative gamble that could have changed the future of Power Rangers forever. This is the story of how one man became the beating heart of a franchise, and how Jason David Frank turned a simple role into an immortal legend. When Tommy Oliver first appeared as the Green Ranger, the world didn't know what was coming. The show had already been a hit. But Tommy made it a phenomenon. Every time the Green Ranger showed up on screen, ratings exploded. Kids begged their parents for the Dragon Dagger toy. The Dragon Zord became an icon overnight. Saban Entertainment realized something monumental. Tommy Oliver wasn't just another Ranger, he was the Power Rangers. But here's what few fans knew. His story almost ended early. In the Japanese Super Sentai version, his counterpart, Burai, had a tragic fate. Burai's life force was limited, and he eventually died. That meant the American writers didn't have much Japanese fight footage left to use. So they had to improvise. And that's where the magic happened. Every time Tommy disappeared from battles, lost his powers, or slowly weakened, fans felt genuine heartbreak. That limitation, born out of production necessity, accidentally created one of the most emotionally charged storylines in the series. When the green candle burned out, symbolizing his fading power, kids across the world were glued to the screen, hoping for a miracle. And that's what made Tommy so unforgettable. He wasn't untouchable. He could lose. He could fall. But he always came back. And when he did come back, It was as something entirely new. The White Ranger. A rebirth. In Light, when Jason David Frank returned as the White Ranger, it wasn't just a power-up. It was redemption perfected. His new powers came from the light of goodness, making him immune to evil control. He wasn't just a ranger anymore. He was the leader. But behind the camera, a storm was brewing. Austin St. John, the original Red Ranger, Walter Jones, and Tui Trang had left the show due to low pay and exhausting schedules, earning less than a waiter per episode, despite the franchise generating millions in merchandise. That void opened the door for Tommy to rise to leadership. Suddenly, Jason David Frank went from a supporting role to the face of the franchise. And fans loved it. The moment Tommy stepped forward as the new team leader, he didn't just replace Jason, he redefined what it meant to lead. He was calm, collected, compassionate. And that balance of humility and strength became the emotional core of the team. Tommy Oliver had officially become the heart of Power Rangers. The Red Zeo Ranger, the power of continuity. By 1996, Mighty Morphin had run its course. The Japanese footage had been exhausted, and it was time to evolve. Enter Power Rangers Zeo. A brand new look, a brand new story, a brand new power source. But once again, Tommy stood at the center. Now wielding the Zeo crystal, he transformed into the Red Zeo Ranger, the fifth Ranger in rank, and once again, the leader. This wasn't just a costume swap. Zeo represented transformation, both for the character and the franchise itself. It was the first time Power Rangers had to reinvent its own mythology, and having Tommy carry that transition was genius. It gave audiences emotional continuity, something no Super Sentai adaptation had ever done before. In a way, Tommy became a bridge between generations, the glue holding together a universe that kept changing every year. While the suits evolved and the villains changed, Tommy remained constant, the embodiment of legacy and loyalty. The Red Turbo Ranger. Passing the torch. Power Rangers Turbo. The era of high-tech cars, sleek Zords, and new beginnings. Once again, Tommy led the team, this time as the Red Turbo Ranger. But this chapter wasn't about power. It was about letting go. In the episode Passing the Torch, Tommy made one of the most emotional exits in the series. He handed over his powers to TJ Johnson, a new hero stepping into leadership. And for fans who'd grown up with Tommy since 1993, it was bittersweet. He wasn't dying, he wasn't defeated, he was simply moving on. That was the beauty of Jason David Frank's performance. He made growing up feel heroic. He showed that even legends must step aside so others can rise. It wasn't just the end of an era, it was the graduation of one. But of course, this wouldn't be the last time we'd see Tommy Oliver. Forever Red, the return of the legend. Years later, when fans thought his story had ended, Forever Red arrived, one of the greatest crossover episodes in Power Rangers history. Every Red Ranger, from every generation, united for an epic battle, and right at the center of it, Tommy Oliver. Older, wiser, stronger. The moment he appeared, wearing his Zeo suit again, the fandom exploded. It wasn't just nostalgia. It was homecoming. Even though the episode had continuity issues, like Tommy's mysteriously restored powers, nobody cared. Because when he said, "Let's do it, guys," fans everywhere felt it. That spark of childhood magic reigniting. Tommy's return in Forever Red wasn't just fan service. It was proof that legends never really leave. They just wait for the right moment to return. But Tommy wasn't done yet. Because years later, when everyone thought the story had finally reached its end, Jason David Frank came back one last time. Not as a rookie, not as a leader, but as a mentor. And that comeback would redefine what it means to be a Power Ranger forever. The mentor and the master morpher, the final evolution of Tommy Oliver. When Power Rangers Dino Thunder premiered in 2004, no one expected what came next. A familiar name appeared in the cast list, Dr. Tommy Oliver. But this wasn't the same teenager from Angel Grove. This was a man shaped by time, loss, and experience. He wasn't a student anymore. He was the teacher. And when he stepped on screen, fans around the world felt it instantly. That surge of nostalgia, that quiet respect. It wasn't just Tommy coming back. It was Jason David Frank, the man himself, returning home, from hero to mentor. In Dino Thunder, Tommy was now a paleontologist living in Reefside, drawn back into battle after discovering a mysterious power source. The Dino Gems. One of those gems bonded with him, granting him new powers and transforming him into the Black Dino Ranger. This was his fifth color, and his fifth rebirth. But this time, something was different. Tommy wasn't the focus of every fight. He wasn't leading a team of peers. He was guiding a new generation. And yet, that made him more powerful than ever. The beauty of Dino Thunder wasn't in its flashy battles or CGI effects. It was in watching a man who had once been the young warrior, now teaching others how to carry the torch. He trained Connor, Kira, and Ethan, not just in combat, but in wisdom. He taught them that being a ranger wasn't about strength, it was about character. He reminded them, and all of us, that power means nothing without purpose. And when he said lines like, "Once a ranger, always a ranger," it wasn't just dialogue, it was truth, it was legacy. Facing himself, the fighting spirit. Then came one of the most powerful episodes in the entire franchise. Fighting Spirit. After being trapped in a coma, Tommy faced visions of his own past selves. The Green Ranger, the White Ranger, and the Red Zeo Ranger. Each one challenged him, forcing him to confront his own doubts, failures, and the weight of everything he'd carried through the years. It was symbolic perfection. The warrior who had once fought external enemies was now battling himself. His guilt, his memories, his exhaustion. And when he emerged victorious, it wasn't because of raw power. It was because of acceptance. Jason David Frank delivered that episode with such emotional depth that fans could feel the pain and pride of every version of Tommy Oliver all at once. It was his way of saying, "I've fought every battle, I've worn every color, but the hardest fight is always within." If you're still watching and this story has ever inspired you, hit like and subscribe right now. Not just for Tommy Oliver, but for Jason David Frank, the man who gave his heart, his soul, and decades of his life to this world of heroes. The Master Morpher, the symbol of legacy. Years later, Tommy would return once more, this time in Power Rangers Super Ninja Steel for the 25th anniversary episode, Dimensions in Danger. But he didn't come back empty-handed. He returned wielding something extraordinary. The Master Morpher. This device wasn't just another gadget, it was a symbol. It allowed Tommy to access all his past Ranger forms: Green, White, Red Zeo, Red Turbo, and Black Dino. 5 lifetimes of power, experience, and identity, all in one. The moment he held it, fans knew exactly what it meant. It wasn't just about nostalgia. It was about closure. The Master Morpher represented Tommy's journey. Every victory, every scar, every transformation. It was as if the Power Rangers universe itself was saying, "You've earned every color. You are the legacy." No other Ranger ever received something like it. Not because they didn't deserve it, but because only Tommy had lived through every era. He was the thread connecting the past, the present, and the future. When the episode aired, fans around the world flooded the internet with emotion. People didn't just see a hero, they saw their childhood. They saw the man who'd stood by them for 30 years. And in that moment, Tommy Oliver wasn't just a character anymore. He was mythology. The Eternal Ranger. After that, Jason David Frank made several appearances at conventions, interviews, and fan events. He always said the same thing. "I'll always be a Power Ranger." He lived it. He breathed it. Even off-screen, he carried that spirit everywhere he went, supporting fans, teaching martial arts, encouraging people to push through pain and self-doubt. He knew that Tommy Oliver wasn't just his role, it was his mission. That's why, when news broke in 2022 that Jason David Frank had passed away, the world fell silent. Fans lit candles, shared tributes, painted murals, and posted "It's Morphin' Time" across every platform imaginable. Because even though he was gone, his voice, his energy, his message still echoed in every kid who grew up shouting morphin calls, in every adult who found courage because of him, in every fan who learned that no matter how dark things get, you can always find your light again. But even now, years after his final battle, Tommy Oliver's story isn't truly over, because legends like him don't end, they evolve. And his influence continues to shape new generations of Power Rangers, storytellers, and dreamers. Which brings us to one last question, the one that truly defines his legacy. What does it mean to be the greatest Ranger of all time? The legacy of Jason David Frank, the Ranger who never took off his helmet. Every generation has its hero, but few heroes manage to become immortal. Jason David Frank did. To millions of fans across the world, he wasn't just an actor who played a role, he was the Power Ranger. Not because of the color of his suit or the strength of his punches, but because of what he represented. When you think of Tommy Oliver, you don't just remember a character. You remember what it felt like to believe, to stand tall, to fight for your friends, to choose light even after walking through darkness. Jason carried that message his entire life. Even long after the cameras stopped rolling, he still showed up for fans, conventions, and kids who needed hope. He smiled, he trained, he spoke about discipline and mental strength. He lived the Power Ranger code every single day. And maybe that's why his loss hit so hard. Because the truth is, Jason David Frank never really stopped being a Ranger. He wore the suit on the outside, but the spirit of it was always within, the power of a symbol. In the Power Rangers universe, Tommy Oliver changed colors 5 times. Each transformation carried a message. Not just for the story, but for all of us watching. Green taught us that even the lost can be found. White showed us that redemption can lead to leadership. Red symbolized courage and responsibility. Black embodied wisdom, reflection, and legacy. Every color wasn't just a costume, it was a phase of life. Jason once said in an interview, "Tommy's journey was my own. Every version of him taught me something about myself." And you can see it. The connection between man and character was real. The line between Jason and Tommy blurred long ago. To fans, they became one. The man beneath the mask. Behind the smile and the martial arts mastery, Jason was human, raw, passionate, sometimes hurting. He faced personal battles few ever saw, and through it all, he still found ways to inspire others. At conventions, he would often look fans in the eyes and say, "You're stronger than you think. Don't give up." Those weren't just words, they were lived truth. He knew what struggle felt like. He knew what it meant to fight your own mind. And that made his message even more powerful. Because when Jason said, "Never give up," he wasn't preaching, he was surviving. That's what made his story so heartbreaking and so beautiful. Even in his darkest moments, he gave others light, the Eternal Ranger. Years after his passing, fans continue to celebrate his life with art, music, tributes, and tattoos of his helmet. In every convention, in every online tribute, one phrase always echoes. Once a Ranger, always a Ranger. It's not just nostalgia, it's a vow, because Jason's influence didn't stop with Power Rangers. He became a martial arts instructor, a mixed martial artist, a motivational speaker. He taught confidence to kids who felt invisible. He gave hope to fans who struggled with depression. He was proof that even heroes can hurt. And that's why they matter. His energy was contagious. When he walked into a room, you felt it. That signature grin, that humble swagger. He treated fans not as followers, but as family. He remembered names, took time to talk, encouraged dreams. That was Jason David Frank, a hero on and off screen. The ripple effect, generations of Rangers. The Power Rangers franchise has continued to evolve. New teams, new powers, new worlds. But every generation, every reboot, still carries echoes of Tommy Oliver. Every time a new ranger doubts themselves, every time they find redemption, every time they lead with heart, that's Tommy's DNA. He taught the Power Rangers universe how to grow up. Without him, maybe the show would have stayed just a kids' series. With him, it became a myth. A story about transformation, forgiveness, and the fight to be better. Even in new adaptations, his presence lingers. Directors reference his legacy. Writers nod to his history. Fans compare every leader to Tommy Oliver. He became the gold standard, the unshakable legend. A hero's goodbye. When Jason passed in 2022, the world mourned together. People who hadn't watched Power Rangers in decades suddenly felt that childhood ache again. Memorials appeared everywhere, from Texas to Tokyo. Fan art flooded social media. At conventions, thousands gathered to shout the words that defined him, "It's Morphin' time!" But this time, it wasn't just a battle cry. It was a thank you, a farewell, a promise to never forget. Because even though Jason David Frank is gone, Tommy Oliver will always live on. In our memories, our stories, and in every act of courage that someone takes after watching him fight. And maybe that's the true power of the Morphin Grid. Not in the suits, or the weapons, or the Zords, but in the people who carry its light, the final message. So if you're watching this right now, take a second. Look back at all the versions of yourself, the colors you've worn, the changes you've faced. Maybe you've fallen. Maybe you've fought through pain no one sees. But remember Tommy's story. Every time he fell, he rose again. Every time he changed, he became stronger. And so can you. That's Jason David Frank's true legacy. Not the fame, not the suit, but the belief that anyone can become a hero. So to every kid who ever dreamed of morphing into something greater, to every adult who still whispers, "It's morphin' time," when life gets hard, this one's for you, because heroes never die. They just transform. If Jason David Frank ever meant something to you, if Tommy Oliver ever gave you courage when you needed it most, honor him now. Hit like, subscribe, and share this video to keep his light alive. Because as long as his story is told, as long as someone remembers the Green Ranger, the White Ranger, the Red Ranger, the Black Ranger, Jason David Frank, the true Power Ranger, will never fade away. Fade out to white. Echoing voice. Once a Ranger, always a Ranger.